Hey everyone, welcome to Heat That Moves. Hey Wayne.
Hey.
I'm Josh. This is Wayne and Trevor. We are three guys who went to school together back in the day, and now we talk about business, life, and whatever else that comes up. Um, I guess today we're going to touch on a little more serious topic, um, and we're going to talk about the shootings that happened in Atlanta. The shootings there was a shooting at three massage parlors where six of the eight people who died were Asian women. Um, it was targeted towards Asian people, specifically Asian women. I'm half Chinese, and kind of over the week, I've kind of wrestled with it, and it's gotten a little more serious than I had thought. My reactions got a little more intense than I thought previously. Um, but I would not. I think it'd be a mistake to not mention that. There were shootings in Colorado too, so we've just
Mm.
been a tough week. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So I guess I'll get into it. Um, yeah. Should I do a cultural recommendation first, or just go right into it?
I say go
Uh,
for it. I mean, if you kind of
Yeah.
give us the
Okay.
context for it, I'm
Sweet.
always down
Yeah.
for something new.
So yeah. So start with something a little bit lighter. I was going to do at the beginning of the week. I was going to do this audiobook called "Someone Who Will Love Me," and it is a collection of short stories by the creator of BoJack Horseman. It's a little
Great show.
sarcastic. Yeah, great show. A little sarcastic. It's very BoJack. BoJack applied to completely different genres. There was one story on superheroes who got powered up as they got drunker. Um, so very interesting take. But that's not what I'm going to do today. I was going to recommend this movie Boogie, which I actually haven't seen, but it is because of the events that happened last week in Atlanta. I thought this would be good to get a kind of insight into Asian culture, kind of what life is like for, I guess in this case, Asian male. Uh, it's created by this guy, Eddie Huang. He was the creator of Fresh Off the Boat, and this is his directorial debut of a movie.
Mm.
Also recommend Fresh Off the Boat. I actually wanted to it. I didn't know if it was funny because my life was reflected in this TV show, and I was like, Ashley, is this show actually funny? Because I think it's funny because the stuff really
hmm
going on is like stuff I've experienced. But she's like, oh yeah, it's funny. Like I get it. So hopefully other people get it as well. Have you all seen Fresh Off the Boat?
I have. I've probably seen at least 3 seasons.
Nice. Yeah. So
It's a
it's
funny
good.
show.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we should all watch Boogie then, and then get back together and talk
Ooh.
about it.
So what is Boogie on?
Yeah. Boogie. Oh. I think it's in theaters actually.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
I don't think it's actually in streaming services right now,
okay.
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Um,
I would absolutely be down to see it because I mean I do like Fresh Off the Boat. One thing that struck me that you said was you were asking people if it's funny,
yeah.
and I feel like I've had to do that a lot in my life. It'll be like some like black movie or black TV show or something, and
Yeah.
I'll like be talking about it to people that aren't black, and there'll be jokes, and I'll look over, are you gonna laugh? And they just don't get it. And I'm like, okay, you don't get it. It's cool. So it's funny that like I think everyone kind of has that, especially everyone that's like a minority. Because I feel like generally speaking, I usually if it's a white thing, I get it because that's what most things are.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to like that other people experience that in kind of the same way when it's like so many different cultures. Just trying to share things and see if the other people outside of that group all get it or embrace it and things like that. So it's just an interesting thought that everyone kind of has that for the most part.
Yeah.
I wonder if it
And
means something that I haven't thought that way. That's probably like part of being white is you just like if I think it's funny, I just assume it's universally funny. That's just how white people's brains work.
Yeah. I mean, I generally know that it's funny, but it's just about references. And when you're in like a minority or like the other group, there's a lot of things culturally that maybe don't translate to everyone. So it's just a different situation.
Yeah,
That's
that's
funny.
interesting.
Yeah. I have noticed in the past year, probably because of coronavirus and people calling it like the China virus. I don't know what they call it, China virus or whatever. Um,
Mm.
there's been a lot more representation in like TV shows. So like Ginny and Georgia was on Netflix. Have you guys seen that?
Gin in Georgia?
Yeah, Ginny and Georgia.
No.
Uh, I enjoyed it, but the love interest is a Asian dude. And also Amy Poehler just directed a new movie um, on Netflix. I can't remember the title of, but like Netflix is pushing, I guess, Asian
Mm.
representation. Love interest is also Asian, which is kind of funny because I had like literally haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Why? I wonder why now. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
because I definitely think Asian people generally have been underrepresented, especially as like leading characters. You know what I mean? Like non-comic relief, like serious
Mhm.
actors. Why do you think now? Because I'm sure that I wonder if those things predate
Mhm.
coronavirus and that becoming a part of the cultural conversation.
You know what? I have a theory.
Hmm.
I think that for the longest time, it's been a very small group of people controlling what media gets created
Mm.
and disseminated. And in lately, it's been getting opened up a lot more. So now there's a lot more outlets for people to get their stuff out there. There's Netflix, there's Amazon, there's Hulu, there's you know YouTube. People can go on YouTube and become famous and get discovered. There's Disney Plus. Also, probably because China's economy is growing and everyone wants to get into that
Oh yeah,
market.
totally.
Because I definitely know that I've definitely heard stories of Marvel movies mainly. In order to be shown in China, the Chinese government will have requirements, and they'll be like, okay, for this movie to be accepted, because they only accept a certain number, it has to have at least one major character of Asian descent and this and
Mm.
that, and they do a lot of things to like nudge it in the direction that they want it to go.
Mhm.
Actually, one interesting thing that you guys have seen Doctor Strange, right?
Yeah.
You know
Oh, really?
the Sorcerer Supreme. You know what I'm talking about?
I know the character I
Cool.
think you're about to talk about, even though I haven't seen it.
Yeah. So like the Sorcerer Supreme before Doctor Strange is like this. Is or was originally I think it was a like Taiwanese or I can't remember what nationality she's supposed to be in the comic books. Like, what is the Dalai Lama?
Is he Tibetan?
Someone help me. I'm blanking. What country is that from?
Tibet?
That
The
was
Dalai Lama? What?
Josh, you
Is
think
it
Tibet?
Thailand?
I
Oh,
don't know. I don't know. I believe
well,
Here,
they have
I'll
like
do a quick
conflict
little
with
Google.
China. Yeah, they have conflict with China. I don't remember what
Nepal?
country it is. And so they recast it and made it like some, I guess, Irish type Celtic person instead.
China.
Did not like make China mad about it, which was
Huh.
kind of interesting. I would have thought maybe they would just made it Chinese, but whatever.
Weird.
What do you think? Josh, did you Google that or did you know it
No, I googled
about
it.
the Dalai Lama? You're
I
faster
googled it.
Googler than me. Uh,
Where is he from, or what country?
China.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, I googled
That's
Dalai Lama
not what
country.
it's supposed to say. I don't think. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, but
I'm not surprised.
yeah, but okay. So the movie's
Oh,
called
man.
Boogie.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
What?
Yeah.
what?
Oh, I was sorry. So like, China has definitely like overtaken different countries, and other like they're so big and powerful that some like other countries just like okay, cool, not okay, cool, but like we're not gonna do anything about it. I think Tibet is one of them, and I was at
Tibet. That's the country.
yeah,
That's it. She was supposed to be Tibetan,
yeah, yeah.
and Yeah, it was, and they just completely changed it just so that they could still go into the Chinese market.
Yeah, that's interesting because well, I had a friend back in college, and her and her friends, I guess there's a dance competition, um, and they were competing, and it was different cultures from around the world, and they did a Tibetan dance and called it a Chinese dance, which she's
Mhm.
from China, and she 100% is like, "Oh yeah, Tibet, like, we all love each other." Um, which I now kind of think might be partially Chinese government saying everything's, happy. Um, but OU said like, "Oh, you can't do that dance and call it this. Like your dance is Tibetan, not Chinese, or we're gonna disqualify you." Which was kind of crazy, I
Hmm.
thought as well. But
Hmm. Okay. Well, I think we might be getting off the rails on the
all right,
recommendation.
my bad.
Although that is an interesting topic that maybe we'll cover in the future. So do you guys let's go on ahead and dive into the main course, which
Yeah,
is the Atlanta shootings.
yeah.
So
So the main course, Atlanta shooting again. 8 people were killed. 6 of them were Asian women at these massage parlors. 3 separate massage parlors in Atlanta. Um, and I when it happened, because I'm half Chinese, and you might be surprised because sometimes I don't have facial hair and I look a lot more white than I am. I it's been interesting my like identity, because I grew up in a very Asian family. My mom's completely Chinese, and my upbringing was definitely influenced by traditional Chinese um, culture. And in the beginning of when I heard of the shooting in Atlanta, it was I kind of didn't react very strongly. I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like that is totally something that happens in not even 2020, but like generally nowadays. Like a bunch of
mhm.
people get murdered of a certain race." Um, but then as the week progressed, I kind of got angrier, and I kind of got a little, a little bit more scared, and also I kind of reassessed how I looked at some of the other shootings,
Mhm.
because most of them have been mostly against black people, and I think I've kind of reassessed, the Black Lives Matter movement and just the intensity of what some of the people might be feeling, because man, like I reacted more strongly, and if this happened, twice a year, every year, um, I don't know, that can do a lot to your mental well-being, I think. Uh, but it was just a surprising reaction for myself. Where was I going with that? Yeah. So I kind of thought that with these shootings, um, I reassessed kind of how I view being Asian in America, and like how I approach that um,
Mhm.
in life. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's an interesting statement. That like having that happen kind of illuminated what it feels like whenever that happens to other groups a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which I mean, hopefully, I mean, as a silver lining from this tragedy, maybe it can you know bring different groups together that have these tragedies happen, and one if we could really unify, a little bit stronger and have a little bit more empathy, like we might be able to get the political will to I don't know, do something to prevent some of these things from happening. I
Yeah.
mean, whether it be maybe background checks on guns, or just cutting out some of the loopholes, because it's crazy how many loopholes there are as far as like gun sales in the country. Like, I'm not against guns,
Mhm.
but I think that there are some things that we could do that could prevent some of these shootings. Like, um, I know there's some places where you have to wait like 48 hours before you can actually purchase a gun. And I didn't really do the research on this, so don't completely quote me on this, but I've read somewhere that there's a couple places that have implemented that, and shootings actually went down
Hmm.
because a lot of times the people that do shootings, they'll get in a weird place and they'll go buy a gun and they'll do it. But by making them wait for just 2 days, like the percent, like it went down by like a noticeable percentage, saving a bunch of lives. And I mean, why do you need it like right then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, so just a lot of things like that. So maybe if we get together and unify, we can make some changes to make it a little bit safer for everyone.
You know,
And
I know that Australia has kind of like an interesting case in point in gun restrictions reducing gun violence. I don't know where I stand on the whole thing. I feel pretty conflicted about it, just in terms of what's the root cause.
Mm.
Josh, I'm kind of curious. Do you mind
yeah,
if I ask you like more of a personal question? In that,
yeah, yeah.
have you experienced any like anti-Asian sentiment since COVID? Like, has that like all the Wuhan flu, Kung flu, Chinese flu descriptors, has that changed your day to day?
No, not really. Um, and I think for a lot of Asian Americans, it probably doesn't. And what I think it does, though, it kind of, but for a few, it does. Um, but it kind of keeps separating that this group of people is different in a negative way, and you can assume that these attributes are them based on their eye shape or something like that. And I think that is what partially led to this guy saying like these people, they aren't necessarily not human, but they're not like me. They're not human like me.
Hmm.
And that's what led to. I think that's what led to him doing something like this. Um, I guess we should mention he said that he wanted another big stereotype, or not stereotype, but prejudice placed on people, on especially Asian women, is that they've been objectified and made these sexual objects. The shooter said that what he was trying to do was he had these feelings towards Asian women, and he wanted to eliminate them so that he wouldn't feel these feelings anymore. Which is super messed up.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But yeah,
I have a follow up question.
yeah,
So earlier in this podcast, you mentioned that like you don't necessarily come off as Asian all the time, and so there's a lot of people that might not even realize that you're Asian or half Asian.
yeah.
Um, have you ever experienced like someone saying racist things about Asian people to you
Mhm.
as like jokes or anything like that, not understanding that they're actually, you know, that you're actually Asian and that it's, I mean, it should never be appropriate, but has
Yeah,
that ever happened to you?
Mm.
yeah, totally. Like, I mean, I'd say it happens a lot. Not a lot, but like definitely more in like high school and like college. I can't like name a situation right now, but I did. I'll tell you about a story. Like in high school we used to like joke around with all our friends and all that
Hmm.
about, or like some of the jokes would be Asian specific, and I just blew it off like, oh, that's funny. um, I had a buddy. He was one of my good friends. He was because I'm half Chinese. He was Korean. He grew up mostly in the U.S., but like he spent like his first few years in Korea. Uh, and one day we were joking about. I even forget the specific joke, but it was made, and then he blew up, and he was like, why are you guys making all these jokes about Asians all the time? Like, that's messed up, and I I'm hurt by it. Essentially, is what he was saying, and
Hmm.
we just never really thought about it that way. And I remember the joke being not very offensive. I remember,
Hmm.
but it was just
Yeah.
a little bit more adding on.
I think sometimes with stuff like that, it's the accumulation. You know what I mean? Like, if you're always in that situation like, yeah, you could, say something every single time, but then you become the guy that's always complaining, you know? because I've definitely had some experiences kind of like that where it's like someone says something and I'm like, I have to like do the cost, cost benefit analysis of saying something or not. A lot of times I mean, maybe I should be ashamed to say, like, a lot of times I'm just like, man, I'm just gonna let this go because, like, I don't have the energy and I don't need to create this, like tension or conflict all because it would happen. If I were to say something every time I heard something racist, I would be arguing with people every day. And I feel like that would do more damage to me than it would, do to racism, kind of. So it's definitely something that I get as well. Like even that's with me being it's not even a secret that I'm black. Like, you can tell.
Yeah.
So like so that I mean so that's even more probably even that's even more like what the hell like right here. But it's one of those things you always have to weigh the cost benefit. But there's a lot of times where it's like you'll be in a situation where you just be fighting all the time, and I don't want to fight all the time. So it's a tough situation.
Well, kind of to your well, after this event happened, I kind of thought like, when were times where I should have spoken up and
Hmm.
I didn't speak up? And I think we have a shared one um, about prejudice in general, and it's sexism related. Um,
I have
I
a
think
guess where this is going. I have a guess.
really okay,
Go for it.
maybe. Um, I was like thinking back, like, oh, okay, like what would I do now to confront people that I wouldn't have done before this?
Hmm.
And I think in our at school we had so like OU's been on the like national news for a couple of things in the past years that were pretty bad. Um, and I think they're all racial related. Um, like three in the past 2 years, like national news. And I think just prejudice in general exists strongly in probably Oklahoma generally. Um, but I think in a lot of our classes, a lot of professors were, um, I guess, I think you don't have to perform the act of being prejudiced to be also take some of the responsibility for it. I think a lot of professors kind of led people up to, you know, even if this guy didn't start, even this guy didn't start the fire. If he, got all the wood together, poured gasoline on it, and gave some guy a match, like you're just as responsible for that fire happening as the person who lit the fire. But I just remember in some of our classes, there was one instance where um, more professors create a situation. I think we're talking about um, equal pay, and um, the professor created a situation, and some of our um, fellow students argued like, "Oh yeah, men should be paid more than women in this situation. Like, men should be paid more than women," and started arguing that point, which I thought was like really
Was I
obscure.
in that class?
Maybe I don't remember.
I
I might
don't
have
think
been
I
before
remember that.
you, but I just thought like I'm sitting here and this thing is happening, and like, should I say something? It seems like I just say something, but um, I didn't. And I guess small things like that
Hmm.
have occurred where I probably should have stepped in, but I for whatever reason did not. And it's not on like for this example, it's not shouldn't be all on let's say the women in the class or the Asian people to stand up for themselves. Like other people should also stand up
Hmm.
for these people. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
I mean,
point.
and that goes back to the whole like if you're in a situation where you're the other and people are constantly making jokes about your group, like it does wear on you because like if you're like the only girl in the group and they're always making like sexist jokes or whatever, and if you keep on saying, you know, defending yourself or defending your group, then people are gonna be like, man, she's always mad. What's their deal? or if you're the only Asian, the only black person, the only whatever. So yeah, it definitely does mean a lot if someone else, steps in. And yeah, so I can definitely agree with that to an extent.
I don't think that was a situation you were going to bring up, Trevor. Though.
I mean, I was gonna not to put too blunt a point. I was gonna say our capstone professor.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
Um,
instances where he would just and he would kind of wrap it in humor, but it was still obvious that it was a point he was trying to make, and it wasn't about pay gap stuff. It was just kind of about like just cliche gender stereotypes. But it was after college, it's kind of like, really?
yeah.
We've let it go on so long. Nobody's objected. We let him get away with this kind of humor. Brilliant guy, but a little problematic in those domains.
Right.
Wayne, I was curious because now we're seeing some Asian protests, especially in like the Bay Area, and we can talk about kind of some of the stuff out there if we want. But
Mhm.
Wayne, do you remember whenever all the Black Lives Matter protests were going on? Do you feel like people that you interacted with treated you any differently? Like, did you notice like a day to day change in like it became such a part of the public discourse? Do you feel like white people were trying harder to like correct for something?
You know what? I feel like I don't have an answer, and I can explain why. It was during COVID. I didn't really see anyone.
Hmm.
So it wasn't a normal circumstance where I can be like, okay, before the protest, before George Floyd, people acted this way, after they acted that way. You know what I mean? Because well before all of that happened, I was basically at home for the most part, not
Yeah.
doing anything, but trying to, self isolate and, you know, look for jobs and do random things like gig economy stuff for money, stuff like that. So I don't know. I didn't really feel like that. I don't know, but it was. I do feel like there was. It was something that brought the black community a little bit closer together, or at least I felt closer to like strangers than I did necessarily before.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
Black strangers, you're
there's
saying?
like in the black community, there's this thing where you like there's a head nod. So it's like you see a black person, you're like, so you don't say anything, you'll be at the grocery store and you see like that one other black person shopping in Edmond, and you're like, and then they just go back. You don't say anything. But that felt like
Whoa.
it meant just a little bit more around that time, than it did. Like it always meant something. But yeah, so I didn't really notice much of a difference
Yeah.
with white people necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I was going to say something real quick. I thought what was interesting about this coverage that's not necessarily race related, but I think is good as cultural evolution is like that the vast majority of the news of the printed news stories that weren't like in the moment reporting, like live reporting, focused way more on the stories of the women killed than they did on
Yeah.
whatever his name, Aaron Long. I probably shouldn't even say it, but it's like that was cool to see. Giving, and I think that it does play into the racial component too, because it kind of like
Mhm.
unlumps them together as you know Asian massage parlor employees. It tells the story of each individual woman, which I think is good at humanizing a particular demographic that, like Josh, you mentioned earlier, is pretty often objectified, especially in a massage parlor context, I would imagine.
Yeah. And it's sad because, like, I mean, so I guess most Asian cultures, they well, Asian people I know, they're usually like first generation or second generation, um, and all they're trying to do is get into a good school. Like a lot of them, or not a lot, but like a good chunk of them do own like service companies, like whether it be like a nail salon or like massage parlor. Um, that's not like uncommon to happen, and they're just trying to like better themselves, better their family. They moved here, or their parents moved here, grandparents from uh, wherever they're from, because they wanted a better life. So like going here, taking that away from them was just really sad. I guess I'll share. So um, my grandma was the first one to move here from China, and she kind of had the same thing. Like she opened a Chinese restaurant. She knew how to like speak English, so what you had to do like open a Chinese restaurant, just so that she could. She moved here to bring her family over. Like she opened the restaurant so that her family could have their life. Um, which a lot of these Asian families are just trying to build their life in America, and they left a lot behind. Probably the first ones to do it, to
Hmm.
make that shift. So yeah, seeing like someone go in and take away um, these families trying to make better for themselves and their families is really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely admire, and I think it's smart strategically, like the focus on owning your own business, right? And
Hmm.
because it's like the connection between understanding that in America, like it's not just income, it's like acquiring equity in something, um, and something where you have a pretty direct control over cash flow too. I mean, just I
Hmm.
think it's smart. It's kind of what you have to do, right? Like, because if you
Yeah.
just kind of take a
And
salary wage job, you might end up in a very different position. But if it's a business you own, you put in the time and the effort, you're probably working 12-hour days, but you're also building equity in a legitimate business that's got sale value, or it's something to pass along to your kids, which you can't do with a normal salaried job. Um,
hmm.
yes, but I say that just to say, yeah, I agree that it's sad for that reason. Um, Especially, man, I can't imagine your place of business has to feel like so much of an extension of yourself and like your home.
Mm.
To have that be the place where like you get murdered in the
Yeah.
business you built, like
Hmm.
that's kind of an extra layer of
Yeah.
twisted. You know what I
And
mean?
for the people, yeah, for the people left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably like the people left behind. Like it's gonna be hard to go back to work. I would think because there's a good chance if it's not someone that they were related to, if someone that they were related to hadn't passed away there, then it's at the very least someone that they were really close to. So it's just almost like every time you go back to that building, I feel like for me it would be hard if like family members and stuff like died in a building, and then I had to go back to that building every day.
Yeah, you have to. It's like you're how you make
Yeah,
how you survive. That's you're forced to go back to where it happened.
Yeah, it's sick.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think. I mean, what do you think? What do you think would be good to have happen next? I mean, I'm a big believer that I'm kind of pessimistic on political change, but I'm kind of
mm,
optimistic on cultural change. I think that's to me. I'm sure I'm wrong. I think that's more effective anyway. So I know Wayne, you talked about this just a little bit not that long ago, but I mean, uh, to both you all, like, what's a good, like, how should this evolve in a productive way? Like, what would you all like to see have happen next?
ooh, that is a deep question.
Yeah. Can I go
Yeah,
first? I
you
think
go.
um just as a personal, like as an individual, just a small stuff. Like every time you have like a small um prejudice you recognize that you think is okay, like maybe don't say it. Like maybe it's like not funny. Like even if it's like making fun of, I don't know, white people or something like that. Like maybe those plus all of them just not um add to that amount of prejudices building that you might building for someone that you may not know where they're at in that build. Because like my buddy in high school, like it was just like the little thing that put him over the edge that made him
Mm,
uh, like blow up to us. Number two, I think like holding people accountable. Like say they do murder someone, like charge them as if they murdered someone. And
mm,
even if, well, I'd say maybe lifting the restrictions on. I'm thinking of policemen, maybe lifting the restriction or the
qualified immunity.
yeah Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's crazy because like literally, it doesn't matter what they do. Like for the most part, unless the police decide they want to press charges for some reason,
yeah,
it doesn't matter what they do. Like they don't really have to justify shooting someone.
yeah,
Like I guess they can just say I feared for my life, but a lot of situations I've seen, they didn't. There was no reason for them to be scared,
yeah,
like at all. So, but yeah, I'd agree with that one.
yeah, and protect others. Like my example in or in our classes, but like stand up for even if it's not related to you. Like say something about it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, I guess my big thing that I would hope we could, gain or a silver lining from this tragedy really just be opening up a dialogue, talking about these things and, acknowledging these issues and just having conversations. Like, I'm a big believer that if you get people together in like a non threatening place and just have the conversations, there's a lot of conversation I think that need to be had that we just don't have because it might be a little uncomfortable or there's people that might have problematic views that don't want to talk about it in front of people that might have a problem with it. Like if we can get that stuff out in the open to just like have those conversations, like if someone doesn't like black people, I would, I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but I'd be like, okay, let's talk about it.
yeah,
Like, why don't you? Because I guarantee you they probably don't know what they're talking about. They probably just like it's either one time one black person was mean to me, or I heard this, or my parents told me that. But if you dig a little bit deeper, generally speaking, from what I've never really seen real prejudice that really holds up to critical thinking and scrutiny and questioning very well. So I'm a big proponent of it's tough and it's difficult, but having those conversations, um, they might still after that conversation, the person might still not like black people, but they're gonna probably on some level understand that they don't have a good reason. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that it's all about just like talking, and
yeah,
hopefully that can bring about more unity.
yeah. I agree. I like your point on questioning. I think that's
Hmm.
this is probably a topic for another podcast, but like
Yeah.
conspiracy theories and different beliefs people have that you think might not be logical. Asking questions is like kryptonite.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do y'all think so I saw something on LinkedIn that I'm kind of curious about y'all's thoughts on. So is this guy, he just added me on LinkedIn. He used to work at the
Mhm.
company where I work. He worked there for a long time. Now he's independent consultant. Somebody posted something about the Atlanta shootings. And he literally said on LinkedIn, which is like the worst platform to do this, he literally said he's like, we shouldn't be calling this a hate crime. And then a bunch of people chimed in and they're like, why? They're like, I mean, you have 75% of the victims were of same continental origin and same gender. You think that's not a coincidence? And he's like, well, we just need to wait for more facts, et cetera, et cetera. What's what's the holdup? Why is that up for debate? I mean,
Yeah.
is it why? I don't understand why it's up for debate.
Uh, I don't know either. I
Yeah.
don't have a good reason for it to be up to debate. I think maybe it's just because the way the laws are written. Um, like things that are obvious aren't necessarily proven to the like. It's very weird. Like someone can go into a synagogue and someone could go into a synagogue and just like murder a bunch of people, and then you know if they don't say certain things,
Mm,
then their lawyer can argue it, but it's all kind of bullcrap and semantics, in my opinion. I think you can reasonably figure out someone's intent in a lot of situations without questioning it too much. Like, in my opinion, like
Yeah.
there's a
Do
lot
you
of
so do
situations
you
I'm
think
like,
that it doesn't matter? Are you saying it doesn't necessarily matter if it's called a hate crime or not?
on a certain level, I think that you should get in a lot of trouble. The amount of issue, it should be really if you kill, 8, 10 people, you should be pretty much done no matter what. Like, I don't care if you're a white guy and you kill a bunch of white people, or you're a black person, kill a bunch of black people, or, whatever. I mean, it matters a little bit, but at the same time, at that level of crime, like, I just think that we should throw the book at you anyway.
Yeah.
I guess.
I
Yeah.
think, like, maybe he's trying to make the distinction, like, legally, it's not a hate crime
Yeah.
or whatever, but, like, obviously, he went to these massage parlors owned by Asian,
Mhm.
owners and shot it up. Like, his
And
intent was to find people of a certain descent and kill those people. And
or women. I
yeah,
could also see it going like if I were a lawyer trying to, get or a DA trying to get him on hate crimes. He already kind of admitted that the reason he was like targeted them was kind of because they were women.
oh, yeah,
When
yeah.
he said so, when he said that like he was trying to like get rid of what was it, temptation or something,
Yeah, yeah,
that kind of implies that he targeted women
it's true.
for that reason. So I don't know. I'm not sure how the law works. Are women? Is there a gender part to that?
Well,
I don't actually know.
all I was going to say is, um, I don't know. So first of all, I don't know if women are, violence against violence targeting women constitutes a hate crime. I was more kind of coming at it from the angle of, I mean, I think you're right, Wayne. Like, if you kill 8 people, you shouldn't need it to be deemed a hate crime in order to go, spend the rest of your life in prison. Uh,
Mm.
I agree with you on that. I was just kind of curious if you all think that there's cultural value in calling it a hate crime. So, say he's going to be locked up for life either way. Is there cultural
Mhm.
value in that? And I would almost, and then responding to your second piece, to me, it feels almost like an anti-Asian woman hate crime. Like, it's almost like the specific combination of both of those things. Like we mentioned earlier, Josh mentioned, Asian women are sexually objectified. Um, I think black women are too, but I think they're sexually objectified in even different ways. To where it's like Asian, I could see in his twisted brain, who's that's racked with guilt because he's got this self-loathing and he's got these religion that's kind of like eating him up inside. Um, I could see him just kind of responding like if he'd gone to massage parlors in the past, he sees these Asian women as just sexual servants. And you know what I mean? So to me, it's almost like that kind of through line makes it seem like it's an anti-Asian woman thing as much as it is anti-woman or anti-Asian, like anti-Asian women. Um, but I think, I was kind of curious about y'all's thought on like, is it important to call this stuff a hate crime, regardless of sentencing?
I'm gonna say yes. I think it does matter, but I think that one thing that matters more is just like the treatment of the assailant. Like it just seems like for me, certain types of people seem to get pretty favorable treatment in these scenarios that I can't really imagine other people getting. Like the guy who I think went into that church and killed, I believe it was 9 people. They took him to like Wendy's or something after. Like, I think that we have to, if we're gonna be like this police state where everyone like they just shoot people like all willy nilly or whatever, then and it sounds bad, but at least do that to everybody. I don't like this weird pattern where like a guy like a white dude go and just do crazy like mass murder, and then they like take him in, no problem. He doesn't even have a black eye or anything, and then someone does something or doesn't even necessarily do anything, but ends up getting shot like 12 times for like no reason, and then it's like, well, I think that if I guess my point is, if I'm gonna be scared the cops are gonna just like shoot me, then at least someone who just killed 10 people should also be scared that he's gonna get shot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
To,
I
to
gotta
your
be
point, when
consistent.
the arresting officer had that famous comment that he had a bad day,
Hmm.
yeah.
that Aaron Long had a bad
So
day. That's the
So
perfect distillation of what you're saying. Like, he's got
yeah,
so much
so
sympathy for this mass murderer that he's able to put himself in the headspace and be like, oh, he'd had a bad day.
that's a
I
positive
think that,
thing that's come out of this is like there's a lot of backlash to that, which
mhm,
I find that as a positive because I think like in past shootings it wasn't as the backlash wasn't as strong. Like I
mhm,
think this backlash is clear and it's widespread that like what this officer said was messed up.
yeah.
Um,
So so I think that once we address that and everyone feels like the law is going to treat them the same, I honestly think that would probably help with some of these, hate crimes and mass shootings. Like, because I think a lot of people just assume that they're not going to get, hurt in the process of doing these things.
yeah,
I mean, I think that that's probably a big part of it. Like, if you don't think that there's going to be that kind of consequence, you might be a little bit bolder in what you do. So which I, it's a hard thing to really balance because I'm not saying I want everyone to be scared of the police. I think no one should be scared of the police in that way necessarily without reason. But I think that we need to, whatever that level of fear is, it should be kind of across the board. Like everyone should have that same like, oh, if I do this, this is what will happen to me type of feeling.
yeah.
I think that if we fix that, we'd fix a lot.
And to your question, Trevor, I think it is good that it's called a hate crime because then it addresses a specific prejudice, like the
Mhm.
prejudice against um, Asian women can be addressed specifically. Like, and hopefully, change will come about because of it.
Yeah.
I think it's positive to call it that.
Yeah. I think I was just thinking about this, and it's like, think about what would be good to have happen. I mean,
Yeah. Well, actually, that let's we could transition into you know positives of
yeah,
come out of this.
yeah, yeah. I think your recommendation of Boogie got me thinking about this. I think that representation of diversity in good media is so important. Like, you all were talking earlier about unity and conversation, and it's like it's hard to get people to have that conversation. I think it's powerful when it happens, but everybody
Mhm.
just binges uh, TVs, movies, podcasts, YouTube. That binges it. I mean, Instagram, etc. But it's like, especially for the more rich media, man, just having good content with people with different stories, stuff like Fresh Off the Boat. I mean,
Mhm.
more of that is better. And I'm this is like my constrained optimism. Like, I'm not optimistic about the police getting fixed in the short run. I'm just not. I think that those implicit biases are just deep rooted and hard to fix. And it's like people just don't make rational decisions when they're acting out of feelings. That's when those implicit biases come out, et cetera, et cetera. To me, the thing that's going to change in the long run is just like good, diverse media, like like complex, nuanced Asian men and women, African American men and women, like good content that everybody's going to watch. That's not just going to attract people that are of the same gender or ethnicity or whatever. But like that to me is honestly the only thing I'm kind of optimistic about. And so I think if that's already been a trend, I think it looks like it is a trend that's going to continue. And I think for the reasons that you all were talking about earlier, it probably has to because the business case is there to make content that's appealing to, uh, even if you just targeted the Chinese. I mean, that's a huge market, assuming the government lets you in. You know what I mean? Like it's like three
Yeah.
United States. It's like I don't know. That's I think it's not my place to say a lot about this topic because like I'm the white dude who's when y'all were listing off your so I mean like I've never felt uh discriminated against for being white and like even anti-white comments don't mean anything to me because I've never felt discriminated. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
so I think that's the only thing I have to add is like as a consumer of media, that's what I want to see. I'm optimistic that those trends keep happening because I think that stuff's powerful. It takes a long time, which sucks, but I
All
think it's
right.
powerful.
Do you know how we make that happen?
How?
We need Trevor's to go watch Boogie
Hmm.
and Blackish
Okay.
Friday. Name something Asian.
So I haven't seen Friday. I need to go see Friday.
Oh
Um,
man, it sounds good. I think this was a good show. I feel like we definitely talked about a lot of things, and I discovered a lot of things I didn't know, and I think I'm really happy with it, and hopefully it gets people thinking.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
great.
All right.
Well, thanks y'all for coming to the Heat That Moves. Like,
Yep.
subscribe. I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.